After the most complicated start in years, the Scuderia is bringing updates to Bahrain. Did they work? Are Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc frustrated with the SF25? Is McLaren the new king? Stay through because today I'll tell you all. The secrets of the new floor, the hidden statements, and what might happen to Ferrari in the future. The 2025 season began with high expectations for Ferrari. With a star driver duo like Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, the SF25 promised to be the ultimate weapon in the championship fight. But the reality has been different. The car has fundamental problems that have been holding it back from the start. It all started in preseason testing. Since then, the SF25 has displayed erratic behavior and a clear dependence on the chassis ground clearance. In the current ground effect-dominated era of Formula One, every millimeter of height dramatically affects aerodynamic performance. And Ferrari simply can't run the car low enough. This limitation came to light in brutal fashion at the Chinese Grand Prix. It was there that both Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc were disqualified after the race. The reason? Excessive wear on the floor. A technical problem that not only ruined the team's results but also publicly exposed a structural flaw in the SF25's design. Since then, Ferrari has been forced to increase the car's ride height. This, in theory, avoids wear penalties, but in return, it sacrifices downforce. In Formula One, where aerodynamic efficiency determines vital tenths of a second per lap, this is equivalent to racing with one hand tied behind your back. And the problem doesn't end there. This increased ride height also affects the car's handling. The loss of downforce creates instability, reduces grip in fast corners, and complicates the driver's lives. Added to this is an uncomfortable technical compromise. To avoid the chronic understeer that has plagued the car, Ferrari has had to modify the brake balance by moving it rearward. This decision helps with the car's rotation, but compromises the life of the rear tires, especially in race conditions. Internally, the atmosphere is also not the best. Lewis Hamilton has made it clear on multiple occasions that he is not comfortable with the car. The Briton, accustomed to a lower, stiffer setup since his time at Mercedes, disagrees with the technical compromise that Ferrari is being forced to accept. In his words, there is a clear performance deficit on his side of the garage, a phrase that did not go unnoticed. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc, although somewhat more diplomatic, has not hidden his frustration either. For him, the difference with McLaren is abysmal. He has literally said that they are on another planet, which highlights that Ferrari is not only suffering from technical issues, but also psychological ones. The root of the problem seems to be deeper than it appears. Some engineers suggest that it is not just the floor design that is failing, but the rear suspension, which could be severely limiting the car's ability to work at the correct height without degrading the floor. In short, Ferrari is not fighting with the others, it is fighting its own car. A car that urgently needs solutions, but where every attempt at a fix uncovers a new weak point. Ferrari arrived in Bahrain with an urgent need to reverse its poor start to the season. The team couldn't continue losing ground to McLaren and Red Bull, much less show vulnerability to a Mercedes team also undergoing a rebuild. Therefore, what was presented in Bahrain wasn't a simple aerodynamic patch, but the first major update package for the SF25. A redesign of the car's floor seeks to recover the aerodynamic efficiency lost following the ride height issues. The main area of focus was the car's floor, specifically the area known as the canoe, the flat central section of the bottom. Ferrari adopted a similar concept to the one Haas used at Suzuka, indicating they are looking to other mid-sized teams for inspiration. The new design seeks to improve airflow under the car without relying on extremely low ride height, a key condition to avoid disqualifications like those they suffered in China. In addition to the redesign of the canoe, critical elements of the aerodynamic package were adjusted. The vertical vents at the entrance to the Venturi tunnels were modified, the side edges of the floor were tapered to better direct air toward the rear diffuser, and a subtle but calculated change was also made to the front floor profile. These modifications are intended to recover some of the downforce lost due to the need to raise the car and to stabilize airflow in high-speed corners. Another part of the package included new rear brake ducts. These not only aid cooling but also have a direct impact on managing aerodynamic flow around the wheels, a critical area for reducing turbulence and improving overall efficiency. A redesigned winglet was also introduced over the rear wing pillar, seeking to maximize straight-line stability and DRS efficiency. But beyond the technical component, the important thing here is the approach. According to Jerome D'Ambrosio, deputy team principal, these improvements are not a revolution, but rather a continuation of the work begun during the winter. It's not a complete change in concept, but rather the implementation of strategic micro-adjustments to recover vital tenths of a second lap after lap. What sets this update apart from others is the level of planning. Ferrari conducted direct comparative testing during Friday free practice. While Lewis Hamilton drove on the new surface, test driver Dino Beganovic used the previous version, allowing engineers to measure the impact of the modifications in real time. This methodology points to a more rigorous and less reactive approach, a sign that the team has learned from its previous mistakes. The big question is whether these improvements actually work. And this is where the ambiguity comes in. From an aerodynamic standpoint, there are positive signs. The car seems more stable in fast corners and the performance loss due to ride height has been reduced. But track times still leave little room for celebration. Charles Leclerc was closer to the leaders in the second free practice session, but Lewis Hamilton once again finished far from the front, suggesting that the full impact is still limited. What is clear is that Ferrari has taken a more proactive and technical approach. It's no longer just about empty promises or declarations. There is a real intention to correct, validate on track, and continue evolving. The problem is that while Ferrari is moving forward step by step, McLaren seems to be flying. Friday's free practice session at the 2025 Bahrain Grand Prix was crucial to understand whether Ferrari's new updates were starting to yield results. After weeks of internal pressure and a disappointing start to the season, the team finally had the opportunity to test its new aerodynamic package on track. And while the stopwatches offered positive signs, the statements from the key players made it clear that Ferrari's situation remains ambiguous and fragile. Starting with the times, Charles Leclerc managed to place fourth on the timesheets for the second free practice session, just over half a second behind Oscar Piastri's McLaren. A result that, on paper, represents an improvement over what had been seen in previous races. Lewis Hamilton, meanwhile, finished in 8th place, 1 second off the day's best time. While it wasn't a disastrous performance, it wasn't the kind of leap Ferrari needed to send a strong message of recovery. The gap between the two drivers quickly became a topic of analysis. Charles Leclerc, who has long been the driver most adapted to the SF25's performance, once again extracted more potential from the car, but even he acknowledged that the situation remains difficult. In his words, "When we look at McLaren, they're simply on another planet right now." That phrase says it all. The improvements are working, yes, but they're not enough to close the gap with the Woking team, which has demonstrated a superior technical and operational level so far. From Lewis Hamilton's side, the interpretation was different, perhaps more diplomatic, but with a significant emotional undertone. He thanked the team for their efforts, highlighting the work involved in developing, manufacturing, and installing a new floor in such a short time. "The improvements are definitely working," he said, conveying a certain satisfaction, although this didn't translate into immediate results on the track. However, Hamilton also mentioned that the car still needs us to get more out of it, indicating that the car's limits are still far from being understood or reached. This difference in perceptions between the two drivers is not new, but it became even more apparent in Bahrain. While Leclerc seems to have accepted that the realistic goal is to compete with Mercedes and Red Bull for third place, Hamilton maintains the expectation that Ferrari can become a real contender. This dissonance can be an advantage if it fuels ambition within the team, or a problem if it reflects a lack of alignment in the direction of technical development. The context of the session also needs to be considered. The conditions were particularly tough. Temperatures in Bahrain exceeded 40 degrees during the first session, affecting tire behavior and the car's balance. Hamilton described the grip as terrible on the hard compounds and highlighted the dramatic difference made when using the softs. In other words, beyond the new surface and technical improvements, on-track performance was influenced by external factors that make it difficult to accurately assess how much the SF25 has actually improved. Team principal Fred Vasseur took a realistic, if not conservative, stance. He was clear that the updates won't change the situation overnight. There are no miracles, he insisted. According to Vasseur, Ferrari still needs to better understand the car's balance and extract more from the current package before considering further developments. This reinforces the idea that Ferrari's plan is not aggressive or revolutionary, but rather progressive, step by step. The combination of results and statements leaves us with a clear picture. Ferrari is making progress, but at a slower pace than necessary to compete for victories. The improvements have had a positive impact, that's indisputable, but they don't represent a complete transformation in performance. And most importantly, the team itself seems aware of its limitations. Ferrari's current situation reflects a constant paradox. It's a team with unlimited resources, elite drivers, and a winning tradition, yet trapped in a technical structure that doesn't quite translate into competitive results. The package of improvements introduced in Bahrain demonstrates that the team is working seriously, that there is a clear direction, and that decisions are being made based on data, not impulses. However, it also highlights the limitations of a car whose original design already suffered from structural defects that are now being corrected on the fly. The aerodynamic updates have improved the SF25's operational situation, but they are not enough to return Ferrari to the front of the grid. The gap to McLaren remains significant, and both Red Bull and Mercedes still pose a constant threat in the fight for the podium. In other words, Ferrari has taken a step forward, but that step doesn't bring it close enough to the ultimate goal. The statements of its protagonists reinforce this idea. While Leclerc openly acknowledges McLaren's superiority, Hamilton chooses to highlight the progress. Both are right from their perspectives. There is progress but also frustration. There is development but a lack of real competitiveness. Ferrari finds itself in that awkward middle ground where it is neither a total disappointment nor a clear threat. A gray area that in Formula One rarely brings titles. The season is still long, and Bahrain could be the beginning of a gradual recovery. But if Ferrari wants to aspire to more than simply damage limitation, it will need more than minor aerodynamic improvements. It requires a deeper review of its concept, total synchronization between its drivers, and perfect execution race after race. Otherwise, the 2025 season won't be the expected comeback, but rather another on the list of wasted years. For now, Ferrari has stabilized its slide. But to become Ferrari again, the real challenge begins now.